Welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel. My name is George, and today we're going to be checking out a review of some description. An album I may be familiar and fond with, maybe even some of you guys, especially our host. Today we are reviewing What Burns Never Returns by Don Caballero.
Hello there, and welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel, the strange music show where we dive into a different album each and every week, right? So yes, as Bird and Limbs drummer George has kindly informed us today, we're going to be reviewing Don Caballero on the channel, the mad math rock group with the most phenomenal drummer, with a look at my absolute favourite album from the group, What Burns Never Returns. Hope you all enjoy. So of course let's ask ourselves, who are Don Caballero? Well, Don Cab is an American math rock band from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, led by drummer, percussionist and co-founder Damon Che, the only consistent member of the band, an absolute madman when it comes to the drums, I have to say. Across the many years from the early 90s to the late 2000s, Don Cab have seen a whole host of members just come and go, with a few hiatuses sprinkled in here and there basically. But yes, today we're looking at the band's third studio album, What Burns Never Returns, released on Touch and Go on June 9th, 1998, which featured the original lineup for the band following a 2-year hiatus following the release of Don Caballero 2. And so here we have, of course, Damon Che on the drums, right? And guitar for tracks 3 and 8. As well as Ian Williams on guitar, the same Ian Williams who plays for Battles, as well as Pat Morris on bass guitar, and one Mike Banfield on guitar as well. And together, we have a ferocious dirge of math rock aesthetics dominated so much by Damon Che's absurdly precise and frantic drumming, as well as wonderful experimentation from Ian Williams, with the album apparently being his first significant experimentation with pedals and electronic effects. It all results in such a ferocious album that never sits still for even a moment, blurring past in an instant as the melodies confound you with their esoteric arrangements. And so, I should say before we start off this review properly, when it comes to math rock, and also similar to my experience of progressive rock as well actually, There is a fair amount I do really enjoy from the scenes, but I always actually find it very difficult to write about, as it's constantly shifting and changing genres that never stay still in the same place, always keeping you on your toes as it confounds you with its ever-changing array of time signatures. But that being said, this is without a doubt one of my favourite albums of all time, and as tricky as it is, I want to celebrate the bizarre weirdness that is What Burns Never Returns. So yep, let's do our best to discuss each and every one of its tracks then. So opening up with Don Caballero 3, we immediately have an onslaught of aggressive taps against a metal fence, it feels, echoing with unusual lo-fi effects before suddenly slipping right into a much more straight drum beat. An unusual time signature kept up with the hitting of the cymbals as the rest of the drums abstractly hit every possible pass of the kit, it feels, before this very weird assortment of guitar and bass comes in to join the procession. It becomes an instantly confusing track, as guitars and bass feel oddly more regimented in their structure than their drums, which seem insistent to just throw everything off course. Slight accents placed in such peculiar places that feel oddly arrhythmic, but only almost they do. Yet, in this glorious, confusing spectacle of music, it all seems to tie into itself together so brilliantly, creating this odd sense of rising out from the very place and time, floating upwards above the rooftops of these very houses. Of course, with it being math rock, it's still going to just keep you on your toes, of course, especially when we get an absolutely maddening fill where Damon Che just bashes the kit repeatedly for such an absurdly long amount of time, just creating this confusing miasma in the process where you're just looking around going, what the hell am I experiencing? Before it all ends, and it lets that bass just come through with that esoteric riff of going right back into that strange structure once more. But this time though, the strums start to really flare wildly against the unusual tones from the guitars. And I just love the fills here, just keeping up the pacing and the structure without even adhering to the specifics of composition. Just freeform, almost untreated drumming. It is truly exhilarating, and one of the most baffling openers to any album I think I've ever heard. What we do get is what is arguably a little bit of respite in the form of a repeated guitar lick that comes in a little bit later, backed up by the bass and drums that still just go wildly all over the place, before the changing just happens once again. It is oddly strange yet delightful sound, one that becomes truly incomprehensible by this point, as it just seems to navigate from riff to riff, from motif to motif. These suddenly delightful sounding little melodies that are repeated for a few bars over and over, and we're suddenly changing just into the next scene essentially. It's very unusual though, as the guitar seems to play these these odd little licks before delving into very chuggy sections that are almost arrhythmic themselves. But all the while, this amazing sense of movement is just continually kept up, just driving everything along further and further, right into the realms of pure incomprehensibility. And with it being such a long composition, it feels impossible to actually really discern every single one of this many different details. Certain elements come through, sure enough, but too many to really comprehend all at once. But I think this is one of the things that actually makes this album so spectacular and delightful to listen to. A constant building swell of instrumental performances, dominated by a drummer that just cannot stop for a single moment. My goodness, it's just one of the best album openers of all time, something I still cannot fathom truly to this day, but something that sets my heart racing when I hear it and just gets your energy lifted up to this very ecstatic place. I should try to mention the track's final section towards the end of this one though. Following the lengthy instrumental section that seems to offer different vibes in the form of the intensifying performances, it all seems to fade away to silence and lead into one of the more strangest sections about 7.5 minutes in, I want to say. Where we get this odd guitar line coming through, bouncing back and forth between its notes, and creating this very weird stretched sense of time itself. So many bends on the guitar here, and it just warps my very perception, it feels. But especially when the bass comes in for a single note, it leads the way for the drums to this incredibly long sort of section against these now looped guitar tones. A final weird section that feels like we're finally meeting the strange alien creatures that have been trying to abduct us from our homes. But it's without a doubt one of my favourite things about this whole song, because I just love how it all sounds, and somehow even manages to navigate towards this very unusual yet incredible little groove at the end, before eschewing that in favour of just hitting everything on the kit, it feels, in the form of organised chaos. I adore it, but I also just cannot get my head around what's happening here half the time, and it's such a precedent for what the rest of this album is going to be like, but my goodness, what a perfect way to open up this album. To move along though while we still can, our next track is perhaps one of the best named compositions I think I've ever heard. In the absence of strong evidence to the contrary, one may step out of the way of the charging bull. And so this one enters the scene with the stuttering of guitar notes, the drums just bashing around to keep the structure there, but still throwing in so much flair and colour. It feels like the whole composition is just slightly leaning forward, still being pushed along, but at this very odd sort of slightly wonky angle. And it just bombards you with these Morse code guitars and amazing drum performances throughout the entire thing. Like, I adore though the lovely chunk on the bass on this one though, chugging away in the background with a wonderful menacing sense of presence. And yet it still finds time for some very unusual little pulls it seems, even if just for a singular moment. But as weird and stuttering as the whole thing is on this one, it does find time for those nice little grooves here and there that you get with Don Caballero. Especially midway, when you get this delightful section of just seeing the world go past right outside the window, nature set into motion by the movement of vehicles, it feels. What amazes me though is the multitude of weird tones that coming through from time to time across the whole length of the composition though. Like the guitars playing a wonderful abstraction against the amazingly wild drums. And as well though, the bass, which is seeming to opt for some very weird tones that add in so much character to the composition. It's almost like that thing of blink and you're going to miss what is happening. But such is what I find from the math rock genre anyway though, like there is always too much occurring for me to comprehend it all at once. And I just find that you can pay attention to little blips that sort of come past, or at least someone with my type of brain does. But what you do pay attention to is wonderful, but as well the vibe that's coming through in the music is just always so wonderful and fascinating to experience. I should say, you do actually get a bit of a weird change towards the end of this one though, when it all shifts this unusual guitar line that runs basically all the way down the frets it seems, punctuated by some chunky bass once more as the other guitar plays a very weird melody behind it all. But especially with the drum patterns over it all, it becomes such an interesting and fascinating part of the composition, this strange little alien section that is worlds apart from the rest of the song it feels, before ending on a deluge of static and noise. Another really bizarre track, of course, but amazing in its navigation of the absurd story that this whole album seems to be presenting, of just strange, incomprehensible alien music that is not of this earth at all. From here, though, we move on to the next track, which is without a doubt probably my absolute favourite one here. Delivering Groceries at 138 beats per minute. One of my favourite names for a track as well. This is the one where the chunk and noise really gets turned up though. Like after a glide of guitar to open it up, you get some distortion and fuzz playing this wonderful riff essentially, before the drums go into that weird stuttering effect, backed up by the bass before going right back into the riff. This one always puts a smile on my face, I have to say. Like it's just so loud and noisy, with the guitars doing this incredibly weird interplay of sort of sending the distortion back and forth between the two headphones it feels, whilst the bass is continuing that riff and the drums just keeps that pace going at that very weird staggered structure that is very timekeeping but very all over the place at the same time, in a way that only Damon Che can do, of course. But what I adore is like there's a wonderful break of two fuzzy guitar chords, and then it goes, and it goes right back into that chug session, bum 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 bum, and then it's so wonderful. Like I just adore like all the sort of tones and everything that's coming out on this song. It just always just fills me with such energy whenever it happens. Like it's a track that is once again overwhelming in its own right. But I just can't get enough of this one. Like, embedded in all the layers of noise, fuzz and drums, there's some incredibly strange tones that come in from time to time, of course. Be it the bass, which just seems to warp itself into the background for the briefest of instances. Some amazing little details hidden within the noise that the track is offering, essentially. And it's what I adore, because every time I hear it, I just seem to capture little details hidden within it all, as well as just following the amazing dirge that the track is offering. Of course, with it being Don Cab, it does navigate to a bit of a lighter section, a turn down of the distortion as the pacing is kept up, at least until the drums start doing this never-ending fill that gets faster and faster and more manic and chaotic, building up to this tumultuous point, only stopping when the distortion comes right back in, just fuzz fuzz, pounding away, smash smash, until we get a single whoop from the silence. I don't know why, but I cannot express how much joy I get from hearing that one singular piece of whoop. I find it so fantastic, as it feels just like this wonderful expression of pure joy and elation from performing this really weird music, essentially. It even leads the way for a further descent of ever, increasing pacing of dirge and tone, just a classicalismic overload of deluge that becomes louder and louder and more chaotic until the drum solos take away all into the next section, guiding the song towards its ending, where you get perhaps some of the strangest guitar tones on this one, almost scraping the strings in a deluge of effects pedals. I've got to say, I don't really think I can do this song justice. There's just something about this track that fills me with joy and elation whenever I hear it, and is without a doubt one of my favourite things off of this entire album. Some proper chunky, esoteric, fuzzy dirges offset by absurd drum performances that you just can't even capture all the many details of it feels. But you also cannot ignore that sheer sense of ecstatic elation that this track offers whenever I hear it, of course. It's the exact same thing that draws me to this album, though, in this band, the sense of emotion you're actually getting while you listen to it. Long-time viewers of the show know that emotional resonance is something that's very important to me in the kind of music that we review on this show. And I'll be honest, I can't think of much we discussed where that resonance is a sense of pure joy and wonderment. It's maybe what I find so special about this track, though. It's so weird and unusual, so different to most of everything else out there, and yet it fills me with such wonderful emotions. I have to say, fair play. Who would have known such a fast-paced track clocking in at 138 beats per minute would actually achieve that kind of result, but such is the nature of weird music, though. Let's move along, though. We get to our next track of Slice Where You Live Like Pie. So taps of the cymbals and percussions open this one, creating a steady beat for the guitar to just loop in with abstractions all over it. But it's when the bass comes in that it actually gets very weird, though, two singular notes leading onto the realms of composition itself almost, only for it then to be taken into other directions, creating a very weird space where the guitars opt for some amazing tones, ones that just glide past the scene in an instant. And you start to wonder, after everything we've heard thus far, where is this particular track going to go? Only for it to find weird levels of distortion and fuzz midway through it all. Some amazing pulls on the guitar, as well as you getting this lovely chunky section. And I adore it, as you kind of just want to start moving along to it, following along to that structure and beat, only for it to just change the scene when you least suspect it, causing you to just look like a damn idiot in the process. But I have to say, I like that. There's something incredibly humorous about it. And the more this one goes on, the stranger it all becomes, though. It just gets faster and wilder and crazier as it navigates onto some very weird sections that once again just feel ridiculously incomprehensible. Especially 2/3 of the way through onto this one, though. A kind of Captain Beefheart riff set against those amazing drum fills from Che before finding time for this more regimented outro section that still finds time for the guitars to just wildly screech and whine. All the time the drums just doing their thing, smashing away with the weird semblance of a structure before that is being established by this band, like it's almost falling apart, and yet it's still held together at the same time. It's one of the things where I listen to what Che is doing, and I find myself in awe of his abilities as a drummer, though, being able to hit any part of the kit at any point, it feels, and make it work within the context of the compositions that he's creating, making it all shift and change with different times, fills, accents, just whatever he is doing. There is something truly breathtaking about it all, and it's moot to mention perhaps, those who know the band know of the brilliance that comes from Che's drumming, and how it's perhaps a focal point for the very band itself. But credit where credit is due, the whole sound that the band offers also works very well here, because you're getting math rock with a very jagged edge. The guitar work is amazing, the bass is amazing, and it all combines itself to make this very idiosyncratic rock that is very coherent. It's so weird how it straddles the line between incoherence and structure. But it's what makes it amazing and fun to listen to. Like, I just truly adore the whole thing. Our next track, of Room Temperature Suite. This one opens up with what feels like a stricter drum beat, but then the guitars come in, sounding oddly stretched and drenched in the sun's rays almost, establishing that weird skewed scene once more. But before it all gets going, you get a very unusual loop from the guitars, like this oddly distorted and affected note that appears and disappears over and over, sounding oddly warped, but very cool. And from there, it just dissolves into the classic Don Cab structure of very unusual guitar riffs and licks set against Damon's amazing drumming, of course. Like, I love his performance on this one, as he just seems to go for the fills and nothing more midway through, leading the way for this really cool but very weird interplay between the guitars and bass that loops over for a few bars. It's very unusual, but of course the whole thing has been unusual. But there is something amazing about how it all sounds, of course, though, with it being a weird little moment of respite in context of this baffling music, perhaps, before it then paves the way for the rest of the composition. Like, I think it's genuinely at this point where, it's whenever I listen to this album, this is where I just cannot fathom what the band is doing. All I know for sure is that they're doing whatever the hell they feel is fit. And somehow, whatever it is, it's working. It's creating something that feels so exciting to listen to. Like, I find myself in awe as the scene changes and shifts so much that I don't even know where to really begin. Like, you find yourself pulled along by the esoteric jam of the guitars and the drums, all adhering to those unusual time signatures, only for them to all just let it shift and change into other things entirely. And this one really seems to play with the silence almost for a very brief moments, letting Che just rattle away on the kiss as it all tapers off, only to then find time to just come back in once again though. Like, finding that weird little pacing once more to really close off the whole thing. Like, I cannot really fathom nor understand what's actually going on here, but I feel this sense of joy and elation when hearing it all. Like, the result of all this music that sounds like it's just creating something I find so exciting, essentially. Something so engrossing that it's always revealing new secrets and new details each and every time I hear it. And it's so difficult to properly put into words. Like, it frustrates me that I adore the music so much, but I can't comprehend it half the time. But as mentioned, I have wanted to review this album for a really long time. Like, probably since I first started making this series, truth be told. Like, this was one of the first things I wanted to try write about eventually when we first started Weird Music. But writing about the incomprehensible and bewildering is not actually something that comes across all that easily to me personally. Like, of course I want to try my best anyway and at least articulate the crazy assortment of thoughts that comes through from hearing music like this, but it just results in weird reviews that just sound so disjointed. But I think it matches the vibe of the music itself sometimes, and to be fair, it's just fun to generate a discussion about it, which is why I'm going to try my best anyway. Moving along from that weird tangent, the next track of The World in Perforated Lines. This is actually our shortest track on here, I believe. Kind of a gentle, clean tone of guitar before a nervous guitar line comes in, leading into this weirdly structured section that seems to just stop and start as it all progresses. A peculiar stuttering effect that has popped up so much on this album thus far, before the song finds its bearing once more. And I like it though, as the guitar just seems to loop over this very weird chord progression, almost sounding like slightly arrhythmic before the band finds new ground once more. And I found myself very overwhelmed by it all. Like, no, so much of this album just overwhelms me and bombards me. But I'm also in awe of the wonderful guitar tones that somehow snake their way into this one. Like, in any other context, a guitar that sounds just like this wouldn't really work. But the context that Don Cab provides it just results in very weird music that is fascinating to listen to, and it does work. It's very weird and alien, but that's what's amazing about it. Like, it's music that's always jumping ahead from section to section, taking those tones to incorporate new ideas and vibes into the framework of the individual compositions, it feels. And this one I think works so nicely, really offering a proper dirge towards the end of it that plays over and over. But it's almost such a brief instance of a track, one that just shy of 4 minutes is actually hardly short in respect to the term, but in context of this album, this one seems to just go by in an instant, it feels. There, and then it's suddenly gone again. And you're left on the river with the wreckage, wondering what the hell did even happen there. Amazing stuff, and just a wonderful continuation of the absolutely bizarre yet enticing vibe that this whole album provides, though, from start to end. Completely unpredictable music that doesn't even care a single bit whether you as a listener can actually keep up. Because, in fairness, I know I barely can keep up with it, but I find it oddly exhilarating and fascinating even though I experience that. Few music occurs the way this album does. I mean, I'm sure there is many, many different things out there that sound similar to this or on the same wavelength of it, and I find that this one really just communicates itself to me. I can't comprehend it, but I'm enthralled by the entire experience of it, and it's one that I actually just can't get enough of. If I want something manic and loud, this is the one I'm going to go to. So, nearly getting there though. We get the penultimate song of From the Desk of Elsewhere Go. So a tapping of the cymbals introduces the scene before the guitars come in with these amazing brief instants of pure noise, it feels. And there's still that esoteric flurry of notes climbing in and around the drum pattern, but this one feels very broken up and disrupted by the multitude of effects occurring from within those guitars, right? Created for something that truly warps our senses. I mean, it does indeed find time for some nice sections where it's perhaps a little bit easier going. But of course, this is Don Cab. And just as we start to get comfortable for even a second, they change the whole thing and just throw it down further and further into the realms of pure abstraction, it feels. It kind of has, has that kind of start and stop attitude, that stuttering effect that I've mentioned so much on this review, especially during sections that, oddly enough, never seem to actually get going, only for it then to actually break through into these really furious sections though. But all the while, the guitar just seems to bend so strangely in and around it in many unusual ways, those pulls and accents that the instrument offers, create something very nice actually, giving it so much flair and attitude as it's all occurring. Once again, completely incomprehensible to me. And it's one of those things where the longer I spend on this album, the more my own brain comes completely warped by the entire experience occurring. As I progress further and further into its many songs, I find that it's just more difficult to really hone in what's actually going on. And all I can really do is just get pushed along for the ride, and enjoy it for what it is, and spend time in that state of confusion. For as confusing as it all is, I find it to be wonderfully delightful and enigmatic though. Just completely batshit music that features amazing musicians doing some of the craziest of things. I adore this track for what this one is though, this constant esoteric flurry of math rock aesthetics that just continually bash you over the head though. And I can't fathom for a minute what's even going on as it just continues to push through like a bulldozer. But it is still amazing though. This track seems to navigate into some really weird places from time to time. That constant changing thing that you get so much with math rock, with the guitars almost shouting at us with those very weird effects as the drums do some of the most amazing things you've ever heard. There is a brief pause in the middle of this one, for instance, where you get a gentler guitar passage to help us sort of recover from the bombardment of strange noises. But then it all falls right back into it, almost seemingly playing the same riff and section as earlier in the track, but with much more an accent on those tones. Maybe, I don't really know, nor do I understand, but I find it exhilarating whatever is happening here. And especially for the final 2 minutes of this one, the guitar just whines and screeches almost atonally, whilst the others could turn up that fuzz and distortion, letting the space bounce on this very strange riff as the drums continue their unusual journey. There's something truly breathtaking about the way it's all come together here, these brief instances of them all playing together and letting it devolve into chaos and dissonance, only to then play the same repeated sections again, but with much more nonsense and flair thrown into it all. It's all so bizarre and strange, but the constant evolution makes it so exciting. And I'm just constantly wondering what's going to happen next, even though I don't understand for a minute what's happening. But definitely phenomenal stuff. Whatever they're doing is truly amazing. So here we move on to the album's final track. June is finally here. And so this one opens up with some very jangly guitar tones, and the beat comes in, and it's almost like you're hearing two different songs at once here. That is until the loop starts to occur, or over it all, though. And it hears like you're hearing every little single guitar tone from the entire album, all randomized into one singular composition. Like, I don't know, because that doesn't make any sense, but of course it's math rock, and it's always doing very weird shit. But despite this confusing, tumultuous opener, there's a shift that happens into a bit of frenetic moment where a bit more urgency is pushed, chaos ensuing all around their heads, until this amazing bassy groove comes in, though. And you're like, where the hell did that come from? Like, it's a weird, silly thing to just try to comprehend the particulars of what's being heard, because it doesn't make all that much sense, but it's very cool, though. Like, it's the thing I always struggle when it comes to math rock and progressive rock, and actually, to be fair, even some emo stuff as well, actually. The music just always navigates along with very unusual structures. Very absurdist, but as odd as that is, I can't help but just delight when you navigate from a cruel groove into a weird, jangly, discordant nonsense and back and forth again. Like, Don Cab do it so well, where they're constantly bouncing back and forth between those states of comprehension and incomprehension, it feels, just resulting in something that feels very cool to hear and exhilarating to experience. Like, as this one all goes along, I just find myself elated the entire duration of this song, though. Rocking out to certain sections, headbanging away in time, only for it then to change to a different structure, and suddenly my headbanging doesn't match what I'm hearing. Back and forth between those two states. Like, I can't really explain it all that properly, but I find this experience, as bizarre as it is, to be so exhilarating when it comes to the life of Don Caballero here. Just exciting to listen to and experience, and even though it's a weird thing, I truly adore it. Like, this is music that just gets me so excited when I hear it. Like, it's just one of the best things I've heard, and a reason why this is one of my favourite albums of all time. Like, I get that I don't understand it, but I also am comfortable in my lack of comprehension, because what I do know is that when I'm listening to music, I really feel the excitement of when it comes to stuff like this, and that's probably what semblance of understanding I attach to it. It makes sense to me, even the bits that don't make sense. But like, my goodness, how do you even begin to summarise this then? We've essentially talked about every single track here, and yeah, I find even talking about it at this point, I'm just baffled as well. I mean, this is without a doubt one of my favourite albums, I think. Like, I just can't even begin to explain it, but I just adore how this record sounds. It's without a doubt some of the most baffling math rock I think I've ever come across. The strange presentation of Damon Che's phenomenal and unique approach to the drums just results in this incredibly percussive experience, of course. And it's all holding up the music with these precariously built rafters. And over that, somehow those guitars, as a result of looping and using effects pedals, playing these very wonky sounding parts of the instruments, and bass that is just sort of chugging away at times, within it finding moments of pure mathematics into some very heavy chunky dirges. Like, how does that all work together? Like, I don't know, but man, it does, and I can't get enough of it. Like, for some reason, out of all of Don Caballero's many amazing albums, this is the one that stands out to me the best. Like, I just love how organised the complete chaos is here, and how it really gets heavy at times though, like, and how it packs such a punch whenever you hear it. Like, equal parts of bafflement and exhilaration though, and it's also incredibly entertaining. Like, I feel like when it comes to the Don Cab, and especially this album, there is a lot of humour at times. From the ridiculous names of the many tracks, the strange fills the musicians opt for, Like, I have to say, we talked about Damon Che a lot, but special credit does have to be given to Ian Williams for their ridiculous work with using their various pedals. And the immense heavy, chunky heaviness in the bass guitar as well. Like, they all just do so much in their performances and in their approach to their instruments, and applying it to these very weirdly planned templates. Like, it's like every nook and cranny that the music can even offer is just exploited by the band in each and every composition, all under the lens of something a little bit rough and dirtier sounding, with a little bit more bite at times, especially with that distortion and fuzz. Like, speaking of, when it really gets distorted and fuzzy, it really reminds me of the likes of Slint, to be fair, who did also feature on Touch and Go, of course, didn't they? But where Slint kind of made their music, feel incredibly nervous and full of disdain, Don Caballero seems to just want to make it sound as strange as possible. And I think it's truly brilliant for that. A completely uncompromising album that bashes you left, right and centre and has fun doing so. And you have fun listening to it as well. Like, I think as well, I've talked well enough in this review about how incomprehensible about the whole thing and how I think it's fun. So it's probably best, let's wrap this up, because what you should be doing is going off and listening to this entire thing instead of just listening to me ramble about it. But such is the nature of weird music. Like, it is just me formulating weird opinions about weird shit. So yes, with that, we're going to come to the end of our episode of Weird Music. We'll follow the formalities and end just like the do, but I understand you're busy people with busy things to do. But yes, without a doubt, a fantastic record. Wrong way around. A fantastic record, which is one of my favourites. And yes, I'm not going to apologise to George, who opened up this show, who said we should probably be looking at American Don. Like, I get it, the dude has a funny haircut. But I like the American football house being abducted by aliens in a radioactive landscape. Like, to be fair, Don Cab albums, they're all great, don't get me wrong. But this is the one I adore most. So yeah, if you enjoyed today's episode of Weird Music, post your favourite Don Cab song in the comments, why not? Huge thanks to George for opening this episode up for this one. If you want some proper factoids about Don Cab, ask him in the comments, just at the dude, and I'm sure he'll answer any questions you have about this band, because he is the true expert when it comes to these guys. But with that, I would like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music. I wish you all the best. Take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye. Hey George.
Hi Gareth. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Glumburger Show. No! I did it wrong. Welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel.
That's the one.
Today, we're gonna be reviewing The Louse in the Crematorium by the Mars Volta.
It's not The Louse in the Crematorium by the Mars Volta.
I feel like I'm out of ideas already, guys.
Oh no!